If you ever watched Star Wars, you know about the Clone Wars. The main question is, if the clones were all created the same, trained the same, grew up on the same planet, why then were they all unique? Simply put, their brain. Welcome to the central nervous system. The central nervous system consists of the brain and spinal cord. There is also a peripheral nervous system, which consists of all the nervous tissue outside of this central nervous system. The functional unit of the nervous system is the neuron, the cell of the nervous system in charge of sensing, thinking, remembering, controlling muscle activity, and responding. But this video is going to be concentrated on the CNS, or the central nervous system, mainly the brain, its regions, structures, and their functions. The brain is one of the largest organs of the body, consisting of about 85 billion neurons and 10 to 50 trillion neurological cells, and it weighs around 3 pounds. On average, each neuron forms around 1,000 synapses with other neurons. So the total number of synapses in your brain outnumbers the number of stars in the galaxy. The brain is made up of 4 major parts: the brainstem, the diencephalon, cerebellum, and the cerebrum. Let's start with the brainstem. The brainstem connects the brain to the spinal cord and consists of the medulla oblongata,
The Medulla Oblongata.
the pons, and the midbrain. The medulla oblongata
The Medulla Oblongata.
is the most inferior part of the brainstem and regulates the rate and force of your heartbeat, the diameter of your blood vessels, breathing rhythms, reflexes for swallowing, vomiting, coughing, hiccuping, and sneezing. The pons is superior to the medulla and anterior to the cerebellum. This structure acts like a bridge that connects parts of the brain with one another. It also helps with your sleep cycles, such as your REM sleep. The midbrain connects the pons to the diencephalon. It is responsible for scanning movements of the eyes and sight reflexes. Also, your startle reflexes. The thalamus, hypothalamus, and pineal gland are all part of the diencephalon. Think of the thalamus as the router of the brain, just like the router of your house. Think of the internet coming into your house as a sensory signal. The router needs to route that signal to the proper place. Same with the thalamus. All of the signals your body is receiving are being routed to the proper areas of the brain so you can make sense of it all. The hypothalamus may be small, but it's vastly important. It's the part of the brain that's closely associated with homeostasis. It controls heart rate, food being pushed through the digestive tract, contraction of the bladder, the release of several hormones from the pituitary gland. It regulates feelings of rage, aggression, pain, pleasure, arousal, hunger, thirst, body heat, and your circadian rhythm. Whew, that's a lot. What's the small structure just inferior to the hypothalamus? Well, that's the pituitary gland, a gland that releases some very important hormones. Hormones like your growth hormones and antidiuretic hormone, which is to keep your water levels circulating. Posterior to the medulla and the pons sits a structure called the cerebellum. Your cerebellum constantly is receiving impulses from your muscles, joints, and tendons, as well as visual and equilibrium receptors. It regulates posture and balance, and is essential for all skilled motor activities, including muscle memory. Now for the structure that most people think of when they hear the word brain, the cerebrum.
Welcome, Professor.
Welcome to Cerebro.
The cerebrum constitutes around 80% of the total brain weight and is divided into left and right hemispheres by the longitudinal fissure. These two hemispheres are held together by something called the corpus callosum. But the most distinguishing feature of the cerebrum are those raised ridges. These are called gyri. The lobes of the cerebrum coincide with the cranial bones: temporal lobe, the frontal lobe, the parietal lobe, and occipital lobe, each having specific functions. The frontal lobe is the reason each clone was different. This lobe is responsible for voluntary movement, aggression, mood, decision-making, organization, judgment, speech, our sense of smell, personality, creativity, and a whole lot more. Basically, it made Rex different from Fives.
Roger, Roger.
Who was different from Cody, who was different from Heavy.
Time to lock and load!
So, back to the Clone Wars. Why did they all just up and turn on their Jedi generals and friends? Again, it's in the show. There was a behavior modification chip implanted into each one of the clones' brains, and all Palpatutes had to say was,
"Execute Order 66.
and sure enough, they turned against the Jedi. And if we look at where the chip had been implanted, it was in the frontal lobe, which explains their lack of emotion, the decision to turn on their Jedi, lack of self-correction, and empathy.
Good soldiers follow orders."
Moving posteriorly, we find the parietal lobe. This part of the brain is responsible for receiving and evaluating most sensory information except for smell, hearing, and vision. Basically, it's your sense of touch. It also plays an important role in pressure and pain.
Ah! 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 Ah!
The most posterior part of the brain is the occipital lobe. This is our visual center. It receives and integrates all of our visual input. The lateral lobe is our temporal lobe. This lobe receives and evaluates input for smell and hearing, our comprehension of language, and it plays an important role in our memory. So from keeping your heart beating, food digesting, making sense of our five senses, doing your homework, memorizing this information for the test, and everything else you need to do to stay alive, your brain is very important. And with all of those functions, it uses around 20% of all of your energy during the day. And with all of that, this video only scratches the surface of the information this 3-pound lump of neurons is capable of. Well, I hope this video has helped you understand a little bit more about arguably your most important organ of your body. If it did, be sure to use that frontal lobe in decision making of hitting that subscribe button and the like button as well. Until next time, keep learning and keep discovering.